Greetings again everyone, and today I'll be checking out what is surely the coolest looking little lens I've ever seen in my life, the Funleader XSLIM-M 28mm f2.8 Pancake lens. It's also one of the smallest lenses I've ever handled. Well, if mounted onto the Leica M mount cameras it's designed for, that is. If you're shooting on a Sony E mount camera or another system, then you will need an adapter, which spoils the effect a little, but the overall package still looks gorgeous in my opinion. This is a manual focus, manual aperture lens which offers a full frame image circle for Leica M mount, as I mentioned, and it's $360 or about £300 here in the UK, and the lens is also on sale under the Brighton Star name, by the way. I'd like to thank Funleader very much for sending me a copy of this lens for evaluation, although as usual this is a totally independent review. And as well as looking fabulous, it has desirable characteristics. Also, a 28mm f2.8 lens might not be the most spectacularly creative optical design in the world, but it is extremely useful for street photography and general purpose shooting, being a moderately wide angle on full frame and offering a nice little emphasis on your subject when used on aps-c. The lens itself truly is a bit of a work of art. Just look at this thing. It's very tough, metallic and perfectly assembled with a classic design almost like something from some bygone era, and its weight is only 113 grams. But its small size does necessitate some rather fiddly controls. The focus is controlled by a lever at the side, which does at least turn very smoothly. That bit's quite enjoyable to control actually, and as you can see here, focus breathing is only moderate. Trying to manipulate the lens's aperture ring is super fiddly though. It consists of a very thin, smoothly turning ring just around the front glass element itself. Very often while turning it, you will accidentally turn the manual focus ring a little too, so double check your focus whenever you change aperture. The lens comes with a lovely little box, also with a little carry bag and a very small metallic screw-on lens cap with a 25.5mm filter thread that's as tiny as the rest of the lens. Overall, well, the lens has tight build quality to match its gorgeous aesthetic look, but it certainly is a fiddly little thing. What about image quality though? I'll start by testing it on my full frame camera, a Sony a7R III with its 42 megapixel sensor. In-camera corrections are not available with this lens. At f2.8, image quality is a little soft in the middle, but we can still see what's going on well enough. Corner image quality is non-existent on a full frame camera. In my tests I discovered that this was in large part due to uneven field curvature. Well, let's stop down to f4. The corners look brighter now, but otherwise no better. However, the middle of the image now looks excellent. Stop down to f5.6 for razor sharpness to emerge in the middle. The corners though are still looking very weak. At f8 and f11 there are small improvements, but the good news is that if you stop all the way down to f16, we finally get some good corner sharpness. Pity you have to stop down quite so far to get it, but still, at least it's possible there for landscape photographers. Okay, let's see how the lens performs on an aps-c camera, in this case my little 24 megapixel Sony a5100. f2.8 looks a bit worse in the middle of the image on aps-c, which was to be expected. Corner image quality is very poor, but at least not as bad as on full frame. Stop down to f4 and the corners look just a little brighter. The middle however now looks nice and sharp, and at f5.6 contrast becomes perfect. The corner image quality is a fair bit better at f5.6 also. Stop down to f8 for great corner sharpness, and at f11 the lens is razor sharp from corner to corner. So overall, as you can see, this lens is not an optical powerhouse. It works a little better on aps-c than it did on full frame, although on both formats I do wish it was sharper at f2.8, even just in the middle of its images. Let's take a look at distortion and vignetting now on a full frame camera. The lens projects a fair bit of barrel distortion here, and heavy vignetting emerges at f2.8. Stop down to f4 or f5.6 though for those corners to mostly brighten up. The lens's minimum focus distance unfortunately is a very long 70 centimeters, and that's probably one of my biggest disappointments about the thing. As you can see here, close-up images are a little softer at f2.8, but thankfully from f4 they sharpen up very well. Okay, let's see how well the lens works against bright light. Whoa! All kinds of flaring issues are popping up here, and there's no way to use a lens hood either, so definitely keep this thing well away from bright lights. While we're working in the dark, let's take a look for chroma and sun stars. Somewhat unsurprisingly, chroma levels here are very strong, and this was with the lens properly focused into the corner. Even stopped down to f8, it's still there, ditto at f16, and we're not really getting any decent sun stars out of it either. And finally, bokeh. Although it's actually very hard to get out of focus backgrounds out of this lens, particularly due to that long minimum focus distance. The bokeh, when you do get it, looks a little edgy here, but there's nothing too problematic going on. Overall, well, I don't really have much choice but to denounce this lens's poor image quality. Unfortunately, you've seen the results for yourselves, but is that enough to put you off owning what could be officially the world's most beautiful looking Pancake lens? And the truth is, it's still enjoyable to shoot with, seriously. While I technically can't recommend this thing, still, it's certainly a beautiful object and fun to use, and I do think Funleader are going to sell a few of them, and good on them, I suppose. Okay, three things actually. Firstly, thank you for watching. Secondly, if you haven't already, check out the new playlists on a playlist section of my channel, which list my reviews now by camera mount and in other cool ways to help you browse the lens reviews that work for your camera. And finally, thanks to my Patreon supporters, of course. Patreon supporters get all kinds of exclusive bonus content and early access to videos, as well as a warm, fuzzy feeling deep inside them for playing such a big part in keeping this YouTube channel going. Ciao for now, everyone.